So my name is Rihanna, like the singer. I'm with Geeks of Color. How are you?
I'm good, Rihanna. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. So
Cool.
right off the bat, Bruce Wayne's relationship with James Gordon is very unique, regardless of the adaptation. My question is, how would you describe the relationship in this movie, and what was it like playing that alongside Pattinson?
Well, we're in year two of Batman's journey, so we're still in pretty early days, and it's the relationship between Gordon and Batman has been established to some extent, but they're still fleshing it out. I think they're still building the trust, and they're still getting to understand one another to extent they ever will. Um, I think the relationship is born out of necessity, though. Um, our Gotham is decaying. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of mistrust. Not unlike Go- the Gotham out there, but they, I think, out of almost a sense of desperation, seek out one another. I think particularly for Gordon, because the thing that kept coming back to me, scene after scene, in working on this film, was that Gordon is overwhelmed. He's trying to do the best he can, but he's continually underwater, finding himself almost underwater, and that just that sense of isolation, um, I think, leads him to reach out to this strange creature of the night that is Batman, and out of that, this partnership forms. And I think for Batman, he sees something in Gordon that's rare in his life and in Gotham. He sees someone whom he believes has integrity, and so the partnership is born. And yes, in our film, I think we explore that partnership in a way that maybe hasn't been done previously. They've often been kind of in their own sides of the fight, but we see them very much together, and I think that's a function of Matt Reeves' script, which is very detective focused. This is a murder mystery. It's a plot driven script, and so at the core of that plot is mystery, the mysteries of the Riddler, and so the two of them together as this team of detectives is really at the center in some ways of the journey through the film, because that's also what Matt wanted to celebrate, and what we haven't necessarily seen previously in other versions of these films is Batman, the world's greatest detective.
What was it like working alongside Pattinson as the world's greatest detective?
It was great. I mean, everything that we do as actors is informed by the other actors we work with, and our director and his vision, and the sets and the lighting, and we were all creating this world, this Gotham, together, and working off one another very intimately, and trying to create something that was uh, uh, a Batman film for the 21st century, Batman film for today. And so working with Rob was just wonderful. I mean, the first day he showed up, the first scene that we shot was the scene that you've seen in the trailers of us walking through the cops into this crime scene. And prior to filming that, Rob came out in the bat suit, but he only had the cowl on. Actually, he didn't have the full thing on. You could see, it was coming together, but you could see some uncertainty. But then he put that thing on, and it was just like, there was the Batman, and from then we just took off and ran with it.
Awesome. So picking off of that, it's sort of easy to sort of downplay Gordon's role as just pressing the button, turning on the bat signal. How does this movie expand on that role, and what aspects of the character were you excited to?
Batman and Gordon are very much a partnership in this film, and because Gordon is a lieutenant, not commissioner yet, he's not sitting behind a desk somewhere, but he's in the street. So it really activates the character in this film in a way that was exciting for me. He's he's lighting the bat signal, but then he's getting after it too, which was, you know, which was good fun. Good fun.
You actually voiced Bruce Wayne in Batman: The Audio Adventures, which I thought was amazing. So my question is, what was it like voicing this character, given your role in this film opposite of the character?
Voicing which character? Jim Gordon in this one?
No, Batman and the Audio Adventures.
Oh well, they asked me to do that. Man, years ago. We recorded that. It's got to be at least 4 or 5 years ago,
Oh,
and it didn't. It almost didn't cross my mind that I had done it because it hadn't come out yet. I was wondering if it had, and I just had enough on my plate to be thinking about Jim Gordon and our film. But yeah, I love doing that. It was a like our film is a bit of a throwback to the origins of the Batman series in that it's detective focused. You know, it goes back to I think what first excited fans about the Batman series in 1939. You know, we're going back to those kind of, you know, thematic origins. And likewise with the audio series that I did, it was a throwback to, in some ways, to the old radio shows, which I absolutely love. I love the kind of melodrama of that. I love the tone. I love, you know, the heightened sensibilities around those. So I had good fun with that.
and you mentioned before the sort of the real Gotham that's surrounding us, and you're the first Black Gordon that we have seen, and your casting was announced during what I would argue is the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. What do you make of that, especially considering how notoriously corrupt the GCPD is in every adaptation?
Matt and I never really talked about that in those specific terms. What I wanted to do, and it's what I do with any role that I take on, is understand how I justify myself in that role first and then try to craft a character. And so for me, and I think the assumption for Matt was, again, we're making a Batman film in the 21st century. Our Gotham is a 21st century Gotham. Gotham was fashioned off of New York City. Back in 1939, Bill Finger, Bob Kane, I believe they both lived up in the Bronx, were looking at the city at that time, and they were crafting these stories based on what they saw. And their hero was a hero that they thought would appeal to as wide an audience as possible. And at that time, New York City was 95% white. Uh, uh, New York City is a long way from 95% white. And so our Gotham reflects the realities of our time. It's not about diversity, it's about reality. The current commissioner of New York, police commissioner of the NYPD, happens to be Black, and also a woman. The mayor of New York, of course, is Eric Adams, a former cop, and is Black. And in fact, I thought about Eric to some extent as a reference for Gordon, among the references that I found inside the comics. But you know, Eric was a very prominent voice within the NYPD during the Abner Louima police brutality case. Likewise with Amadou Diallo, he was one of the few voices in blue that was speaking in public and with force in alignment with the concerns of the citizenry. So he was actually one of the references that I had in my head to justify my and our Jim Gordon in this version of the Batman, which is today's version of the Batman, not 1939. It's the version that we are presenting to the world today.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to see it. I'm sorry that's all the time, but thank you so much for your insights and your time. Hope you have a lovely day.
You too. Appreciate it.